So look, let's make a start straight away. So again, thank you for coming. My name, as you know, is Alex Warren, and I'm the Senior Academic Consultant at National Geographic Learning. And today we are here to talk all about thinking skills in the young learner classroom. Lots of people still saying hello in the chat. Hi to all you people from all over Ukraine. Okay, so of course, as we know, the role of the young learner teacher is multifaceted. Not only do we have the responsibility of developing our young learners' language and knowledge skills, but also their cognitive, social, and interpersonal skills so that they can be successful at home, at work, at school. Basically, successful in life. Let's make sure that we are recording as well, actually. Perfect, we are recording. So this is the agenda for the session. Okay, we're going to first of all look at what exactly do we mean by thinking skills, why they're so important, and then the bulk of the session will be about how we can utilize, instigate thinking skills within the classroom, within our daily, day-to-day teaching. But as always, I want to start with a question for you, because I want you to be involved as much as possible, as always. And that's this question here. What, in your opinion, in your view, in your experience, is the purpose of 21st century education? Just in a sentence in the chat box, what or how would you answer that question? Okay, lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Tatiana. To prepare for life. That's a very good answer. Any other suggestions? Okay, practical skills. So to develop practical skills, of which English is one of them, of course. Critical thinking. Prepare for life, theory, be ready for life. Okay, perfect. We're getting the idea. School or 21st century education is not just about learning a subject, maths, geography, sciences, histories, social sciences, languages. They are teaching you the skills to be successful, whereas the topics are the vehicle to teach those skills. And as 21st century skills point out, it's about giving students a set of skills, abilities that they need to succeed in learning, work, and life in the information age. And topmost amongst those are, of course, the cognitive skills that students need to be able to participate in school, life, etc. So let's just first of all define then, what do we mean by thinking skills? And there's no easy answer to this question because it is such a broad topic. That's a whole session on its own. But I think for the sake of this, we're just going to sort of do a very brief overview. And to do that, we of course need to refer to Bloom's taxonomy. Now, we can split this into two sets, okay? We can split it into the lower order thinking skills. And I think these are things that we do on a day-to-day basis. In fact, I know we do these on a day-to-day basis. This is the foundation of education. It's getting our students to remember, to recall facts and basic concepts. And it's also to understand, to explain ideas or concepts, to describe, to discuss, explain, etc. This is part and parcel of learning, whether that's a language or whether it's another school subject. And we do that very, very well. Like I said, that's kind of the bedrock of the education system. However, what is less practiced around the world are the higher order thinking skills, the HOTS. So to an extent, the applying, but certainly the analyzing and the evaluating levels. And also, of course, the creation as well. We're talking about thinking skills. We're talking about both critical and creative thinking here. But I would say, though, they're kind of two sides of the same coin here. They're not completely different from the lower order skills, merely a combination of the basic skills used in a more specific way. So for example, when we try to solve a problem, we first of all need to observe carefully what the symptoms of the problem are. So we need to understand the problem. We need to use our senses in an accurate way to focusing on what we can, for example, hear and see, and then use that information, understand that information to be able to apply it, to analyze it, evaluate it. But really, I mean, like I say, a lot of those things, the lower orders we do on a day-to-day basis anyway. We need to figure out a way in which we can incorporate those higher order thinking skills as much as possible. And by that, we are, of course, principally thinking about critical thinking and creative thinking. So, based on that, have a look at these different quotes or different descriptions, I should say, of what we might term as critical thinking. So have a look at them. There's 5 there, and just decide which one you think you agree with most of all. And just type in the chat box. So you can just type in the color, red, white, yellow, green, orange, or you can type in the author or the person who said it. So for you, what is the key there? Okay, yellow one, not love the yellow one. Yeah, it's a good one, that, right? It's thinking about what you're thinking, why you're thinking in order to make your thinking better. Lovely. Red one, okay, good. Green one. And I should say there's no right answer or wrong answer here. It's purely opinion. But hopefully during this process, you're analyzing. Well, first of all, you're understanding what's been said. You're analyzing it, you're evaluating it, you're making a choice. So even within this simple activity, we've gone from lower order thinking skills to higher order thinking skills. Okay. I mean, a bit of a mix of choices here. For me, there are 2 that kind of stand out, and that is the red one and the orange one. So John Hughes and Edward Giselle, because they mention something which I think is absolutely vital, and it's this, for the ability to ask questions, having a questioning, analytical state of mind. And questions are the absolute bedrock of higher order thinking skills, of critical thinking skills, of creative thinking skills. Without a questioning mind, our students are not going to progress, they're not going to develop cognitively as we might wish them to. So why is this? Why is it so important to develop these cognitive skills, these thinking skills? Basically, like as I've already kind of alluded to, they are necessary in all aspects of life. You cannot be successful without having a higher level of thinking, of having those strong cognitive skills. Because by thinking critically, especially about knowledge and information, your students will think deeply about issues. But importantly, they will also make connections with what they learn and what they already know. So essentially what we're saying here is that without thinking, learning cannot happen. It cannot occur. And indeed, this is what Carotti, Howell, and Kester point out in their document, Making Thinking Visible. They said that learning is the outcome of thinking. And as such, gaining insights into the way students think is crucial for teachers, allowing them to alter students' thinking dispositions. And certainly, you know, the development of cognitive capabilities in many ways follows the same principles of development as other skills. Indeed, a gentleman called Robert Fisher, who is a leading expert in developing children's thinking skills, says that thinking is not a natural process like sleeping, walking, and talking. He stresses that it has to be learned, it has to be developed, much in the same way that we teach reading, we teach listening, we teach writing, those kind of constructive skills. Therefore, it's our role as teachers to make sure that they get practice, or we use teaching methods that allow them to develop their thinking skills. And he kind of, he talks in the quote there about sort of thinking dispositions. So what do we mean by thinking dispositions? Essentially what we mean is habits of mind. And there are a number of different thinking dispositions which are suggested, right? In fact, there are 8. So these include things like observing or having the ability to observe and describe. It's the ability to build relations or build explanations and have interpretations. To make connections, considering different viewpoints and different perspectives. Wondering and asking questions. So it comes back to asking questions. And indeed, this is something that somebody you all are familiar with as teachers from your teacher training, is that Vygotsky also kind of alluded to. He says that learning is more than the acquisition of the ability to think. It is the acquisition of many specialized abilities for thinking about a variety of things. So by that, he's suggesting the different dispositions, different ways of thinking about aspects. And again, Piaget also talks about the role of the educator and the teacher being as a stimulator of young people's minds. And that is what we have to do as teachers. And for the rest of the session, we'll look at 3 different ways in which we can become stimulator of young people's minds. That's what we want to do. So, how can we do this? And number 1, it is that ability to ask questions. Because asking the right kind of questions can do all sorts for our learners, but also getting them to ask questions as well. It should not be one-way traffic. So, knowing the answers will help you in school. Knowing how to question will help you in life. And hopefully, you can agree with that statement, right? If you can just use your reaction buttons. So I think you've got reaction buttons, I'm not sure, to let me know if you agree or disagree with that. But hopefully we all agree, right? Okay, we'll raise hands. Perfect, that's fine. Thank you for raising hands. Great. So we're on the same page. So how can we do this? How can we help them to question? So let's start with a couple of example activities. So I'm going to give you the answer to a question. And I want you to think about what the question might be. So 288 is the answer, but what is the question? Type your suggestions in the chat box. What do you think it could be? Use your imagination. What might be the question if the answer is 288? What do you think it could be? Gotta think, use that questioning critical mind. Oh, nice. How many steps have you made today? I mean, I have been sat at my desk a lot, but hopefully it's more than that. How many people are there here? Great. How many teachers are present now? Thank you. Great. How many, what? The quantity of listeners now? I mean, if I was a clairvoyant, I could have predicted that. We've actually got 432 people here right now. How many? Oh, okay. I think Liliana, I'm going to give you I'm going to give that to you, actually. You've asked about, you said about, let me just go back. Where's Liliana? She said about the number of questions I've asked today or something, right? That's near enough. I'll let you have it. So the question to this answer is this. How many questions does an average 6-year-old ask every day? And this is some research from the UK, from the Daily Telegraph. So, that's nearly 300 questions a day that your average 6-year-old asks, which is a huge amount, which means, which shows that they are curious, they want to learn, they want to know. And in fact, some research by a gentleman called Warren Berger, who wrote the book A More Beautiful Question, he says that children ask an average of 40,000 questions between the age of 2 and the age of 5. That's kind of even pre-primary. And then what he also found was quite interesting was that over the next couple of years, as children go to school, the number of questions that they ask decline. And this is potentially because of the role of education, that we ask questions rather than get them to ask us questions, right? And I think certainly a lot of students can, a lot of teachers are guilty of that. We ask questions rather than get them to ask questions. And that's what we have to develop, their ability not to answer questions, but to ask questions. So this activity is called The Answer Is. And let's do another example. See how good you guys are. Okay, so if watermelon is the answer, what is the question, do you think? If watermelon is the answer, what is the question? Okay, what's my favorite fruit? Okay, good choice. What is it? Your favorite fruit? Okay, so that's not the question. But it's good. I mean, that's an obvious question. What do you like? What's the biggest berry? Nice, Victoria. What do you like? Okay, good question again. What is the sweetest berry? Nice. What is red inside, green outside? Lovely, Rita. You're thinking outside the box here. Love that. What is it? What's your favorite fruit? What's the biggest berry? What is it? I mean, what is it? Okay, could be the question. What fruit is it? What do you like to eat? What is red on the outside, or red on the inside, green on the outside? What's the biggest berry? Okay. To be honest with you, there's no right answer here. There's no wrong answer. I mean, they're all right, but it's getting you thinking in a more kind of abstract way, let's say. Okay, let's ask another question. This one's quite easy as well. If I would be rich is the answer, what is the question? My favorite fruit isn't watermelon. It used to be when I was little, I used to love watermelon, but now I find it quite plain and watery. Oh, okay, there we go. Ukrainian city Kherson is famous for this berry. Okay, so let's have a look at this next one then. If I would be rich is the answer, what's the question? If I would be rich were the answer, what's the question? If I worked more, okay, yeah. It needs to be a question though, okay? What can change in the world, okay? What should you do? I would be rich. I'm not sure that's the right question. If you were the boss, I would be rich, yeah. What would happen if you won a lottery? Okay, good, there we go, Victoria, excellent. What would happen if you won a lottery? What would happen if you had a really great job? What would happen if you were Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos? If I became my latest, I would be rich. Okay, great. Okay, you get the idea. So you give them an answer and they have to brainstorm what possible questions there could be. And there's no right answer. It's completely divergent thinking for your students. So it's kind of fun to do. Okay, something else we can do to prompt questions from our learners is to use riddles in the classroom. Hang on, I'm just clearing some of the questions there. So using riddles in the question are great, in the classroom are great because, again, we're giving them a situation, a problem, and they have to ask questions to answer it. And why are they so great? Of course, they develop those cognitive skills. They encourage logical thinking, but also divergent thinking as well. They encourage those problem-solving skills. They can also encourage cooperation and communication. And they're fun. Learners like doing them, especially young learners. And the next two I did with my daughter, who is 7 years old. They're right in that primary category. So here's a riddle for you. I am hot. What do you think I am? What could I be? So are you a, are you whatever? So try to write questions in the chat box rather than just the answer. So are you the sun? Are you this? Are you something else? Maybe some of you know this one already. Okay. I am hot. I am bright. That change your answers. Are you in the desert? Nice. Thank you, Irina. Are you a fire? Lovely. So I'm hot and I'm bright. So maybe I am a fire. Maybe I'm in the desert because the desert is very bright on the sand. Are you the sun? Good. Have you drunk hot tea? Are you a plate of soup? Ooh, nice. Are you iron? Let's give you some more information. Don't look straight at me. I'm bright. I'm hot. Don't look straight at me. Are you the light? Okay, excellent. This is what my daughter was saying. Oh, you're definitely a light. This is getting easier. I disappear in the night. Are you a light bulb? Thank you, Larissa. Excellent. Are you the sun? And the last one kind of really helps. I live in the sky. So yeah, absolutely right. I am definitely the sun. Now that is a sort of deliberately quite easy one for you, for young learners. For you because it was done for young learners. So I thought it'd be fun to give you one which is done for sort of older people, teachers included. So here we go. Here's another riddle that I want you to ask me questions about to help you answer. So don't just guess at answers, ask a question to help you to solve it. So here we go. A cowboy rides into town on Friday. He stays for 3 days and leaves on Friday. How did this happen? So he arrives on Friday, and he leaves 3 days later on Friday. Okay, try to ask questions. Thank you, Irina. I should have said, if you know the answer, don't type the answer. That's my fault. He leaves on Friday, arrives on Friday, leaves on Friday. Oh, okay, good, Natalia. Love that. Did he cross the time zones? Really good suggestion. Are your horses Friday? What is Friday? Ah, really good, Oksana. You're thinking more divergently. Well, what is Friday? Is Friday the day of the week, or is Friday something else? Okay, you get it. Friday is his transport. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Oksana. But you get the idea, okay? So I think a couple of you might have heard that one before. But the point is that it gets them asking questions. So riddles can be really, really good, and they're so easy to find online. So we've had kind of the, what's the question activity. We've got riddles, and something else that I love to use with young learners is a wonder wall. Now, wonder walls, or sometimes they're known as walls of inquiry, are, like I say, one of my favorite things in the young learner classroom, because regardless of what subject is being taught, they encourage and foster an environment when each and every question is valued. And it's so easy to implement. It's just a case of having a space on the wall with lots of post-its, and students at any point in the lesson, beginning of the lesson, end of the lesson, can just write questions on the wall. Therefore, it allows them the opportunity to record things that they've wondered about. And importantly, it gives them a safe space to ask questions. Because very often, students, they don't like putting their hand up to ask a question. They get shy, they get embarrassed. This way, it's almost anonymous. They put it on the wall, and then at some point during the lesson or during the week, the teacher can just take off the questions, the wonders from the learners, and answer them. And even, if it's a completely random question that students ask, they can do it. So in many ways, it sits outside the lesson plan, but it's something that we can turn to at any point during the lesson. So it's a really nice little activity, or no, it's not even an activity, it's something nice to have within the classroom. Now, very quickly, I'm going to launch a quick poll just to see if you guys used these before. So, do you already use wonder walls in your classroom? Vote yes, vote no. All those votes coming in. And of course, we're in the English language classroom, so we want to encourage them to write the questions in English. But if they can't, that's okay. They can write them in Ukrainian, Russian, and you can still answer them in English. We're just trying to foster that questioning mind. Okay, I'm going to end the poll there. So we can see that the overwhelming of you don't have them. So great. This is something I really, really recommend using in your classroom. wherever possible. However, there is one thing I want to point out, and that is that wonder walls are great, but they have to be the right kind of question. So what is the right kind of question? Well, the right kind of question is kind of here. What do you think this slide represents, do you think? What's going on? We've got two different question marks. What is going on? Okay, I'm going to help you. So what we have here is we have what we call a chubby question, and we have a skinny question on the right. So chubby question on the left, skinny question on the right. So we need to be encouraging chubby questions over skinny questions. Now you're probably wondering, what's a skinny question? What's a chubby question? What are these questions? Well, in essence, a chubby question are questions that get students drilling down deeper for their answers. They have to actually think for the answer. So in other words, with a chubby question, we're looking for more higher order thinking skills, engagement. And with a skinny question, it's more lower order thinking questions. And we'll look at some examples in a moment. So, I mean, for example, in fact, I'm not going to give you the answer just yet, but have a look at the questions on the next slide. There are 6 questions, and I want you to read them, and I want you to decide whether you think they might be a chubby question. In other words, a question that gets students thinking more, or do you think it's a skinny question where students just find an answer and it's a very short, simple answer? So here we go. Have a look at the 6 questions. And once you've read the questions, write in the chat box which ones you think are chubby. Whether you think they're chubby or not. In fact, you know, let's do it a different way. Number 1, in which country is Machu Picchu? Is this a skinny question or a chubby question? In the chat box, skinny or chubby, skinny or chubby? Absolutely right, it is a skinny question because the answer is just yes or no. It's simple. Students don't have to think about that question, right? Question number 2, why do you think they built a city in the clouds? Perfect, yeah, it's a chubby, or I wrote fat just because I didn't have space for chubby here. Good. Number 3, is Machu Picchu 500 years old? Skinny or chubby? Yeah, skinny, because the answer again is yes or no. It's a very simple answer, simple question to answer. Number 4, who destroyed Machu Picchu? Yeah, it is, of course, a skinny question because it's a who. It's a very simple answer to find the question to find the answer to. Sorry, I'm just clearing the question and answer box. Okay, next one, number 5. You've all answered already, I think. Why do you think it was destroyed? Yeah, chubby, there we go. Ooh, 4 was skinny, 5 is chubby. And last one, what would it have been like to live there? Again, it's a chubby question. So, you get the idea here, right? We need to have a mix of skinny questions and chubby questions to ensure that our students are being engaged in higher order thinking skills. So like I said, you know, chubby questions, they're more effective because they get students or require students to think more deeply, to perceive more widely and to feel more strongly about these things, right? And therefore, you know, certainly with the Wonder Wall, these are the kind of questions we should be getting students to ask, not just yes, no questions or short answer questions. It's all about the wider question, the wider thinking. So skinny questions, they, you know, they'll only give you 1 or 2 word answers, yes, no questions. They don't ask about important information. They only ask about basic facts. Whereas in contrast, your chubby questions, We answer with more information. They get at the main ideas of the story or book. They may be about feelings. They ask about opinions. What do you think about this? Maybe to clarify things you didn't understand in the reading. They ask if anyone has ever had similar experiences, make predictions, explain why or how, make connections or comparisons. In other words, it's getting them to use their brain, to think maybe outside of the text or the listening. And, you know, just simply adding the word why to questions, we're already moving the question from a simple skinny question to a more complex chubby question. And you know, my favorite kind of question in the classroom is, why do you think that? Or why do you say that? Because they might have said something, but they don't know maybe why they've said it. So you say, why did you say that? Or why do you think that? We're automatically making them stop and think, and analyze, to evaluate why they think something and to explain it. Oksana, you're absolutely right. For chubby questions, you do need more time. And certainly it's something that you're not gonna just do chubby questions. You're gonna, you know, mix them up with skinny questions and feed more in throughout the school syllabus. Certainly with younger learners, you know, sort of the lower end of primary, so those sort of 5, 6-year-olds, you might not do so many. But at higher ages, so when we get to the 10, 11-year-olds, the kind of the higher primary, late age students, we want to filter them in as much as possible. So yeah, good touch on mixing them is best, right? And just to kind of align that to Bloom's taxonomy, you know, obviously the understanding, the remembering, and the skinny questions, and then the chubby questions are the higher order. They apply, they analyze, evaluate. And actually, you know, coursebooks do this really nicely most of the time. So this is another example taken from Wonderful World on this reading about the secrets of the sand, the Dabus giraffes. And we've got 6 questions there. And we can see that the first 3 questions are very much skinny questions. When were they discovered? Who might have carved them? What happened to the Kithians? Then 4, 5, 6 more chubby questions. How do we know? Why might the giraffes? Why do you think the Dabus petroglyph was endangered? But it's just a case of being aware of this in your course books that you're using, or if you're developing your own questions for readings or listening activities. So it's that mix of questions and asking the right kind of questions, because as Terry Hike points out, questions can be extraordinary learning tools. A good question opens minds. In education, we tend to value the student's ability to answer our questions, but what might be more important is their ability to ask their own great questions, and more critically, their willingness to do so. So, you know, the first couple of activities were encouraging them to ask more questions, but the second activities was about us writing the right kind of questions, or using the right kind of questions. Okay, let's move on to part 2, or idea 2. And that is this idea of visible thinking routines. Now, we know that in early childhood settings, that routines are really important, or play a really important role in shaping the dynamics of the classroom, including learning environment as a whole. So with this in mind, thinking routines can help to direct learner thinking and structure classroom discussion in a more ordered way. They facilitate communication, learning, and of course, thinking. And they engage students in ritualized interactions that respond to a common goal. And that common goal is the participation in activities that they shape a culture of learning. Thinking routines involve all learners, because all learners can think. The pressure is on the process, not necessarily the production of language, in this case of English. And then, you know, there are plenty of routines that we use in the young learner classroom anyway. Think about the start and end of your class, for example. But thinking routines, specifically visible thinking routines, can help promote and develop young learners' higher order thinking skills. Why is this? Because research from Harvard University suggests that the human brain is predisposed to seek, recognize, extract, and categorize information from schemata that are shaped by routines. Routines are vital in their lives, and children can expand, develop their cognitive strategies when they're exposed to these routines, because routines constitute a major form of organizing memory and thinking. So, what kind of routines are we talking about? Well, I just want to share with you this project Zero, which is from Harvard University. Visit that website, you'll get lots more information there. But essentially, it's the brainchild of an educational psychologist, Ron Richart. And he developed these set of thinking routines, which are short, easy to learn mini strategies that extend and deepen students' thinking. And you can use them at any time in your class, during circle time, group work, pair work, playtime activities even. And the core goals are this: to deeper understanding of content, to create greater motivation for learning, to develop their thinking and learning abilities, to develop their attitude to learning, to create more positive reinforcement of learning, but also a shift in classroom culture towards a community of enthusiastically engaged thinkers and learners. And I'm sure that we all agree that is something that we all want. We want our learners to be more motivated, be more enthusiastic, right? And this is one way in which hopefully we can help them. Now, if you go to that website that is on the screen there, I can put the link in later on. You go there and it's got a huge list of thinking routines. And certainly, you know, these were not developed for the young learner English language classroom specifically, but a number of them can be used and adapted to the EFL classroom. And we'll look at a couple of examples in a moment. You know, there are things like think, puzzle, explore, think, pair, share, connect, extend, challenge. These are all easily transferable to our classrooms. So let's look at a couple. Really easy one, think, pair, share. You know, a lot of the time students are kind of reluctant to speak because they haven't had that time to think first of all. So we give them that thinking time. We give them 60 seconds, 90 seconds to think about a question or a scenario. You then put them into pairs to share their ideas, to see if they got similar ideas or not, to reinforce each other's suggestions. And then they can share it with the class when they feel more confident about it. So for example, here, I've got some questions. Question number 1, what are 3 things you can do with an old water bottle? I want you to think about this for 30 seconds. And then once you've had to think about it, I want you to type it in the chat box. Now, of course, we're doing this in a very sort of not communicative way because we only have to chat, but in class, it creates great discussion. So what are 3 things you could do with an old water bottle? And this is a nice thing to do for pre-reading. You might give them the questions to get them to think about the questions first, to create a motivation for reading as well. Ooh, make a birdhouse, do handicraft. That's 1. I need 3 from all of you. 3 from all of you. A ship, a cup, a birdhouse. Nice. Bird feeder. Yeah. Keep them coming. Ooh, use it for watering flowers. Very nice. Kettlebell. Very good. Wash stand, sandals. Thank you, Natalia. Or Oksana. Recycle, reuse, reduce. Great. Of course. Bird feeder. Okay, lots of creative ideas coming through there. Of course, within the classroom environment, there's lots of chatter, lots of talk going through. Okay. Let's look at another one, which is not overly dissimilar. It's think, puzzle, explore. And this is a great thinking routine to do before your learners do a reading activity. And what the routine does, it encourages or activates prior knowledge. It generates ideas and curiosity, and it sets the stage for deeper inquiry. And it's something you do, you can do it at the beginning of a unit of work for the whole unit. You could do it before a listening. You could do it before a video. Because, we know that with National Geographic learning products, there's lots of interesting global content there that you want students to think about and to explore and to puzzle about as well. So stage one, what do you know about the topic? They're thinking about it, they're brainstorming it together. What questions or puzzles do you have about it? So I asked my daughter this very same question as a kind of my guinea pig on this. And she had loads of questions. All I did was showed her the title, Car-Free Cities. She's like, well, where are these car-free cities? How do they get around in these car-free cities? How do they stop people using their cars in these car-free cities? What other questions can you think of? What are you puzzling about car-free cities? What puzzles, what would you want answered essentially by the text? Any ideas? Are they real? Yeah, do they actually exist? How is it, great Natalia, I love that. How is it possible to find a car-free city? How to make them popular with car owners? Lovely, Carol, love that. Do they exist? Perfect. You get the idea. So you're kind of creating a reason for reading as well. And then what does the topic make you want to explore? So sort of post-reading or post-topic, what do you want to find more about? So it's kind of putting that onus on the learners. And actually this thinking routine is really, really similar to one which you're all familiar with, I'm sure, the KWL chart. And this is just another thinking routine. What do I know? What do I want to know? And then reflecting at the end, what did I learn? This is all young learner teachers should use this thinking routine already. If you don't, you need to start using them because it just puts the focus on the learners. It gets them asking their own questions using the grey matter. Okay, let's look at another one. This one is called Connect, Extend, Challenge. And the purpose of this routine is again to obviously make connections between new ideas and prior knowledge. But it also encourages them to take stock of ongoing questions, puzzles, and difficulties as they reflect on what they are learning. So for example, in this one, you might say, okay, what do you already know about volcanoes? So it's connecting what they already know with the topic of the lesson. And hopefully they can tell you various facts and figures about volcanoes. And then sort of post-viewing, post-reading, post-listening, what new ideas or impressions do you have that extended your thinking in new directions? Also, in other words, what did you learn? What did you not know beforehand? So they're reflecting on the learning process. And then the last one is, what is challenging or confusing? What do you still wonder about? So it comes back to the idea of wondering, right? Asking questions. Because, we want to encourage that, because no text, no video is going to answer everything. What does it make you want to know more about? And I showed this video to my daughter, and she loved the video. She learned a lot, but she had more questions that she wanted to have answered. And so we went online and looked for more information. But it was just that process of developing those thinking skills. Lovely, Natalia. How can you make a volcano heat houses? Great suggestion. Okay. Another thinking routine that is so simple and is so effective in all classrooms is this one, which you may or may not be familiar with, I'm not sure, but I see, I think, I wonder. But this is more about the image. So, and the purpose of this routine is to encourage students to make, in the first case, observations and thoughtful interpretations of an image. It helps to stimulate their curiosity and sets the stage for higher levels of inquiry. So here you might say, I see a house that looks like a castle. It's very colorful. There are lots of people there. There are turrets, maybe. There's blue sky, there's white clouds. I think it might be in Spain. I think a rich person or a king or queen used to live here. I think it might be a tourist destination, for example. So we're going from sort of lower order thinking skills, I see, and I think it's coming into the higher order slightly, but then we're going really high with the I wonder. I wonder why it's painted yellow and red. I wonder why there are so many turrets. I wonder why it's so popular with tourists, right? It gets them thinking. So let's try this with you, okay? I'm going to show you a different picture. And for this one, first of all, I just want you to write sentences saying, I see. So in the chat box, one sentence, I see. What do you see in the photo? And, you know, if we're doing this in the online classroom, this is what I call snack writing. Writing very short sentences. Okay, I see a hippo. Thank you, Natalia. I see a hippo and a man. I see a forest. Good, Oksana. I see a hippo. I see a zookeeper and hippo. Good. I see a happy hippo. I see toothbrushing. I see a man and a hippo. I see brushing teeth. Okay, great. What do you think about the photo? What does it make you think? Maybe we don't know they're in a zoo, so maybe I think they're in a zoo. I think it's cute. I think the man loves animals. Lovely, yeah. I think he does not like brushing his teeth, yeah. I think it's not easy to brush his teeth. I think they are friends. I think the keeper is helpful. Perfect. So it's creating an opinion here, right? So we're kind of accessing those higher order thinking skills, those cognitive abilities. And then the last one, I wonder. What do you wonder about the picture? What do you wonder about the picture? I wonder why he chose this job. I think they got some things. I think that hippo is angry. I wonder why he's doing this. I wonder about the calmness of the hippo. I wonder where is that zoo. I wonder if the hippo runs away while brushing. I wonder if all hippos have their toothbrush. I wonder what he's really doing. Thank you, Natalia. I wonder how often the man brushes his teeth. Thank you, Victoria. I wonder if it can be dangerous. Thank you, Oksana. I wonder if the hippo likes it. I wonder if the keeper is scared. Okay, perfect. And all of these I wonder questions, it's not a question per se, but it's creating a questioning mind, getting them to think and ask questions about an image. And this then provides a great amount of content for a classroom discussion. You can discuss them together. Well, do you think it's dangerous? Why do you think it's dangerous? Why do you think he's got such a big brush? Why do you think he needs to brush the teeth of the hippo? I wonder if the zookeeper has to brush other people's animals. And if so, what kind of animals' teeth does he have to brush? And it's a lovely, lovely activity, which creates thinking. And it all stems from amazing photography, which, you know, National Geographic is famous for, as you know. But that link between thinking and images is not new. It goes back to the time of Aristotle, so 2,500 years ago. He tells us that without image, thinking is impossible. And it's so true. You see something, you think something, you have questions about it. For example, we see this picture and it's like, whoa, what is going on there? Who are these people? Where are they? What's going on? When was this? Or when is this? Why would you want to do this? How are they up in the air? right? So using thought-provoking images is exactly that, thought-provoking, making you think. Does anyone know what this is, by the way? This is completely real. This is a real thing. Does anyone know what it is? What's going on? Can you tell me in the chat box if you know what's happening here? Yeah, good Lord Libov. It is an up in the air restaurant dining experience. Yeah, Sky Restaurant. Thank you, Irina. Lovely. Which I'm not sure about personally. I'm not sure it's something I would want to do, but it might be interesting. Another example here. I mean, again, this is just a particularly odd image. I mean, I've never seen this before in my life. You know, music underground. And it begs so many questions. How can they play underwater? What sounds are the instruments making? I mean, it begs so many questions. And using those prompts, the who, where, what, why, when, how, can really, really help your learners as well. And it kind of buys into this whole idea of visual literacy inquiry. So again, just some more questions that we can ask, or, you know, certainly with the lower level learners, so the younger learners, we need to give them more of a structure. Yeah. So here we can actually give them questions to answer for themselves. What am I looking at? Where is it? Who's in it? What's happening? And so on and so forth, right? What's the story behind the image? Get them to think more creatively as well. Because the visually literate viewer looks at an image carefully, critically, and potentially with an eye for the intentions of the image's creator. And certainly as kids get older, we can connect them to the real world through images like this. Because as well as building their knowledge of the world, it can build their cognitive skills as well. Another example here, you know, this one is more about making connections, really. You know, how is it different to your classroom? How is it similar to school in your country? What would lessons be like in this classroom? And so on and so forth. It's just making those little connections. Okay, one more thinking routine that you could potentially use. And this one's probably for those kind of a little bit older learners, to be honest with you. Called beginning, middle, end. And this is maybe more to do with creative thinking, which is still a thinking skill, a higher order thinking skill. So we show them a nice picture, we give them a choice. If this photo is the beginning of the story, what might happen next? If it's the middle of the story, what might happen before? What might happen, or what might be about to happen? And if this photo is the end of the story, what might the story be? And again, because they've got the photographic input, the image input, it helps them because it's something tangible for them to work from. So, you know, yes, National Geographic Learning course is wonderful, it has amazing photography, but use that photography to develop those thinking skills as well. Don't think, oh, it's a pretty picture. Think, how can I use this to get my students thinking, get them talking? Exactly, Irene, it's a great warm-up activity. These are not like 20-minute tasks. These are warmers to the class, definitely. Okay, I'm going to run over a little bit, I apologize, but last few minutes, we're going to look at developing cognitive engagement through other activities. We've looked at asking questions, we've looked at thinking routines, but there are other activities which we can use. And I want to refer to a gentleman called Herbert Picchu, who is an Austrian educator. And he says that activities that are meaningful and at the same time intellectually challenging are more likely to achieve a high level of cognitive engagement from learners than those ELT activities that can be somewhat oversimple from a cognitive point of view. So just because students might have a low level of English does not mean that they have a low level of cognitive functionality. So we still need to challenge them here. And if it's meaningful and challenging, then there's going to be greater engagement. And he has a book called Teaching Young Learners to Think, which I highly recommend. And within it, he has a typology of thinking skills that we should be teaching young learners. Things like making comparisons, sequencing, making decisions, solving problem, exploring numbers, space, time, etc. We can't go into all of these, but I'm going to look at a couple of them. First of which is categorizing, because this is sort of so simple to do. So imagine we've been doing a unit all about transport, and we've taught these words, and we've gone through the definition, we've done some practice with them. So we think students know them, but really all they've done so far with these words are the lower order thinking skills. They've remembered them and they've understood them. So how do we move using these words to higher order thinking skills? Very simply by giving them a categorizing task, where they have to think more deeply about these modes of transport. So, for example, we give them a task 1. List the above forms of transport in order from slowest to fastest. So that isn't always as clear cut as it might seem, right? It depends. Ooh, I'm not sure if a tram is faster than a train, or if a motorbike is faster than a sailing boat. I'm not sure how fast a helicopter is, and so on and so forth. So actually it gets students thinking about the words on a higher level. We might then give them a second task. List the above forms of transport in order from most enjoyable to least enjoyable. Someone in the chat box has said there from smallest to biggest. Absolutely. Or list them from being greenest to least green. So it's recycling the vocabulary, and it's allowing them to play with them in a different way on a higher level. They're thinking about it. You know, another example, this was from a unit all about technology. So we've got lots of different technology. Okay, put them on a timeline in the order in which you think they were invented. List them in order of importance to humans as a race. And list them in importance or in order of importance to you. And each time there is a different answer. And absolutely, Oksana, you're all thinking the whole time. So categorizing tasks are great. And another type of categorizing task is doing something called odd one out. And this gets students to think both critically and creatively. So let's say we've been teaching a unit about food, and we've taught these words: peach, strawberry, melon, pineapple, grapes. And we say to our students, okay, which one do you think is the odd one out? In the chat box, which one do you think is the odd one out, and why? Now, the thing here is that there is no right answer. You are creating your own answer. Grapes is plural, berries or fruits, potentially, red. But there's no right answer. I could say peach because it's the only one that has a stone in the middle. I might say strawberry is the odd one out because it's the only one that has the seeds on the outside. I might say grapes because grapes is the only one that grows in a bunch. I might say pineapple because pineapple is the only one that you could use as a weapon, for example. But there's no right answer. It's just getting students to think of potential answer. You know, here, dog, cat, fish, pig, cow. What's the odd one out? Well, you might say fish is the odd one out. That's logical because it's the only one that lives in water. But we could say, you know what? Maybe cow's the odd one out because it's the only one that we drink the milk of. Or you might say cat is the odd one out because it's the only one that has 9 lives. Or we might say pig is the odd one out because it's the only one that has got a snout or trotters or whatever it might be. Yeah, cow's the odd one out because it's the only one that's got horns. Thank you, Rita. Love that answer. Another example, final one here. Spider, butterfly, bee, grasshopper, snail. What's the odd one out? Maybe snail, because it's the only one that carries its home. Maybe bee, because it's the only one that stings. Maybe butterfly, because it's the only one that metamorphoses. You know, it's about finding your own reason. So you're thinking about the vocabulary on a deeper level. Okay. So that's some sort of categorizing type tasks. Let's quickly look at some sequencing activities. Now, sequencing is great to get students noticing. So let's say we wanted to revise a lexical set on animals in this case. So we create a logical sequence or multiple logical sequences, which we display on the board or we give to students. So we, of course, elicit the vocabulary. Okay, what's the missing word? And, you know, this is very, very simple for you because you are, of course, English language teachers and you've got great higher order thinking skills. So, of course, the missing animal is lion. How about this one? And obviously, while you're doing this, you put students into groups. So why? Why do you think the missing picture is the piano or the guitar or the drums? They're explaining why. And explaining why is part of analyzing its higher order thinking skills. But at the same time, we're recycling the vocabulary. So the activity deepens the learning. It engages those higher order thinking skills and it makes it more memorable because they think they're just having fun. Hopefully you all said piano. Oh, somebody said guitar. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Last one. Do one more for you. Crisps and pizza. Crisps and pizza. And of course, you know, the next step that you do with your learners is you get them to create their own logical sequences using the vocabulary to test their classmates, which they then share around, do in pairs. And when you do this kind of activity on a regular basis, you'll notice that your children, your students get more confident in figuring out how a task works. While at the same time, there's a very clear language gain. In this case, the revision of the lexical set. The answer was pizza. Crisp pizza, pizza, crisp pizza, pizza. So as Picchu said, if you work on children's thinking skills on a regular basis, the development of their thinking skills will also enhance cognitive resources that support the child's language learning. Because language learning is all about noticing patterns. There's a logical mathematical competencies which are needed for language learning because, like we say, language follows pattern. So doing that activity, the sequencing, facilitates noticing grammar patterns. So for example, we're teaching the past continuous. We ask our students, we give them a load of sentences. What patterns can you identify in these sentences? And hopefully they're using those cognitive processes, those noticing skills to see that, oh, we've got all the verbs are in the ing form, or they're preceded by was and were. Okay, so we can also help them with that. You know, what verb forms come after, what event in each sentence started first. So it's all about noticing those patterns which facilitate language learning. Another example here taken from A Wonderful World Level 6. And this is all about reported speech. So we've got the direct speech and we have the reported speech. So we ask our students, what patterns can you identify? What changes? Putting the onus on them. So it's problem solving. It's critical thinking. And all of that is developing those cognitive abilities of your learner. And we do the same with vocabulary as well, with prefixes and suffix especially, right? What do all of these suffixes have or prefixes have in common? Okay, they're all nouns, they're all verbs, they're all negatives, whatever it might be. I'm going to skip the next one quickly because we're out of time. But kind of the point I'm trying to make there with the grammar and the vocabulary is that a rule that has been discovered is more memorable than one that has simply been presented by the teacher. It's involving our learners in the process. So maybe taking a more inductive approach, giving lots of examples to our students and them working it out for themselves. Okay, I just want to finish with a quote from this man. who, you know, I think it's fair to say knew a thing or two about the mind and education. And he says this: education is not about learning the facts, but training the brain to think. And this is exactly why including any kind of higher order thinking skills syllabus in an educational context, including English language learning, is super, super important. Students need to be encouraged to think, but they need to be taught how to think. They need to be shown how to think. And we can do that within our English language classes by encouraging questions, by getting to ask the right kind of questions, chubby ones, not skinny ones, using the wonder wall, using riddles, using the what's the question. Incorporate those thinking routines and use images to develop those thinking skills. And finally, we looked at those categorizing and sequencing and noticing activities as well. Okay, so that is the end of the session, but it's not the end of the session for you, because I would like you to do, if you have time, some follow-up work. I want you to reflect on your learning, because reflection is a really, really important part of the learning process, but also of the cognitive processes within your mind. So, how will you build a culture of thinking in your classes? What activities will you try? What will you try to do more of in your lessons to facilitate more thinking from your learners? So thank you ever so much for your time and your amazing participation, I have to say. There's lots of great chat within the chat box. Really, really appreciate it. All of the examples from today's session, I should say, came from Wonderful World 2nd edition. And you can find out more information about that from our partners in Ukraine. I'm sure you all know who they are. It's Linguist. You have their website there. You have their Facebook page and their phone numbers should you wish to get in touch with them. As I said at the beginning, the webinar has been recorded, which means that we will send a copy of the recording along with a certificate within the next 7 days. It does take time, so please be patient. You will also receive an automated email from Zoom saying thank you for attending. This is just to say thank you for attending. Linguist will be in touch with the recording link and your certificates, okay? So please don't send us email saying, where's my certificate? It's not within that first email. Be patient, it will come. Are there any questions? I'm trying to look through. Okay, perfect. Lots of nice thank yous there. That's very kind of you. I mean, for me, I just want you guys to take something away with you, to, you know, bit of food for thought. And, you know, if there's 1 or 2 activities you can try in your classroom, great. That's great news. Are there any questions at all? When's my next webinar? That's a great question, Svetlana. That's to be confirmed with the team at National Geographic Learning Ukraine, Linguist. Okay, so we'll be in touch with that in the not too distant future. And you know, something I should say, you know, a lot of what we've done today is, of course, more relevant to the face-to-face classroom. But that's not to say that they cannot be used online in the online classroom as well if you're still teaching online. You know, it might need some tweaking, but it is still possible. Okay, Vadim's asked, do I have pedagogical experience? Yeah, I've been working as an English language teacher for the last 20 years, more or less. Working as a teacher, teacher trainer, director of studies. Okay, Irina says, how to start teaching critical thinking to my 2-year-old boy. I mean, 2-year-old, that's probably a little bit early, but you know, when they're a bit, I do with my 4-year-old boy, I ask him why. Why do you think that? And I have to prompt the questions. But I want my children to have a questioning frame of mind at all times. So I always try to get them to justify their questions. Why are you asking that? Why do you want to know that? What do you think? So instead of feeding them the answer, try to encourage them to come up with the answer themselves. And that might be giving them leading questions, but you're guiding them to the answer rather than telling them the answer. So yeah, Irina, so kind of less, yeah, you ask some skinny questions in the first instant, absolutely. Perfect. Okay, listen, I know we've overrun by a little bit, I apologize, but so much to say and so little time. But listen, take care, stay safe, and hopefully I will see you all in the not too distant future once I am allowed to travel again. So listen, take care. Thank you ever so much and happy teaching. Bye.